This is from the Kutei Sichos Chelek Chaf Aleph, the first Sicha for Parsha Truma. The Rebbe's question about this Parsha is why it's called Truma. Truma means a donation, and just because the Mishkan was built with donations doesn't mean, l'chayda, that the whole Parsha needs to be called donation. Most of the Parsha doesn't talk about the donations. Most of the Parsha talks about the Mishkan, the construction, what was there, and what needed to be built, and what needed to be created. And the fact that it all came together because of the fact that the Yidden made donations is a very important prat, but it's not the klal, it's not the main issue. And yet the whole Parsha is called Teruma, and it can't be just because it's at the beginning of the Parsha, it's one of the first words of the Parsha, because we've already learned many times that there is more depth to the name of the Parsha than just the position where it finds itself in the pasuk. So what is the deeper message? What is the relevance of the word Teruma to the entire story of the Mishkan, the Dira B'Tachteinim, which is the Mishkan? And the Rebbe's answer is that if you think about the word Teruma, which everybody understands, that Teruma means a donation, a contribution. But the Rebbe points out that Teruma actually, besides meaning a contribution, it means a contribution of a portion of what you have. Like when you talk about giving Teruma, giving Teruma in the sense of giving Teruma to the Kohen, you don't give the whole thing. You specifically, you're giving a percentage of what you have. That is the meaning of the word Teruma, to take a portion of a total and to give a portion to somebody else. Not to give the whole amount, not to give the total away, but to give only a portion of the total away. And that's literally the meaning of the word Teruma. Laharim means to set aside a portion and to give it. So when the Eibusher says V'ikoli Teruma, he is specifically saying, I want you to take a portion of what you have, a little portion of your wealth, and give it to make this Mishkan, to make a Asli Migdash, V'shachanti b'Seicham. Now, in essence, a person might think that when you talk about serving the Eibusher, you talk about making a B'dira B'Tachteinim, it needs to be 100% bittul, you need to be 100%, you cast yourself aside for Hashem, and make a Dira B'Tachteinim out of yourself, and cancel yourself. But the truth of the matter is that is not how the Eibusher wants, because that's not realistic, and it's not real. When a person who has a Yetzer Hara, and has an ego, and is asked to be mevatel himself for the Eibusher, to set himself aside for the Eibusher, it needs to be real. It's not enough just to say the words or to announce that you're from here on, you're a batel. It needs to be authentic. It needs to be real. And that is a process. It doesn't happen automatically just because the Torah says that it should happen. A human being doesn't work like that. It's a process, and it's a slow process. And it begins with a small step. And so the word Teruma means transform a portion of yourself into a Dira B'Tachteinim. Transform a small percentage of yourself and your chelik in the world into a Dira B'Tachteinim. Start there, and then you work your way from there. And that is the only guaranteed way that will result in the construction of a Mishkan, and even a Beis HaMikdash, a permanent structure for the Eibusher. A real Dira B'Tachteinim, a real wholesome Dira B'Tachteinim, must begin by a person starting small. And that's why the whole name of the Parsha talks about Mishkan, which ultimately leads into the Beis HaMikdash. The whole thing is called Teruma, because it needs to start small in order for it to be real. Otherwise, it'll be a Dira, but it won't really be B'Tachteinim, because you'll just cancel yourself, take yourself out of the picture, but then you have a Dira, but not B'Tachteinim. So the only way to make it real is to start with a small part of your life, with a small part of yourself, make that into a Dira B'Tachteinim, and then move on to another part, little by little, to Bislach. And you take one mitzvah at a time, and every mitzvah has creates its own Dira B'Tachteinim, and you don't try to grab it all in one shot, and you don't try to transform yourself dramatically and utterly in one moment, but rather you follow the message of the word Teruma, and ultimately you will build a beautiful Beis HaMikdash, including the third Beis HaMikdash made of Yameinu.